The first snowflake landed on Dahlia Harper's eyelash as she looked up at the darkening New Mexico sky. And she knew with absolute certainty that walking 12 miles through a winter storm to deliver a telegram was either the bravest or most foolish thing she had ever done in her 22 years of life. But her younger brother lay fevered and sick back in Albuquerque, and the doctor had said the medicine he needed would cost more than their family had seen in 6 months. When Mrs. Patterson at the telegraph office had offered her $5 whole to deliver an urgent message to the Quinn Whitmore ranch, Dahlia had not hesitated for even a moment. That had been 3 hours ago, when the sky had only threatened snow. Now, as December wind bit through her wool coat and the flakes fell thick and fast, Dahlia questioned whether $5 would matter at all if she froze to death before reaching her destination. She pulled her scarf tighter around her face and trudged forward, following the barely visible wagon ruts that served as a road this far from town. The sealed envelope rested in her inner coat pocket, pressed against her heart where she hoped her body heat would keep it dry. The year was 1885, and New Mexico territory was still rough country, though Albuquerque itself had grown considerably since the railroad came through 4 years earlier. Dahlia had lived there her whole life, watching the town transform from a dusty way station into something resembling civilization. But out here, miles from the nearest building, civilization felt like a distant memory. There was only the endless white landscape, the howling wind, and her own determination pushing her forward one step at a time. Her father had died 2 years ago in a mining accident, leaving Dahlia as the primary provider for her mother and 2 younger siblings. She had taken whatever work she could find, from laundering clothes to serving meals at the hotel restaurant. The telegram delivery job was supposed to be temporary, filling in while Mrs. Patterson's regular messenger recovered from a broken leg. But Dahlia had discovered she liked the work, even if it meant long walks in uncertain weather. Each delivery meant money for food, for rent, for the little luxuries that made life bearable, like sugar for her mother's coffee or a new slate for her youngest brother. But this storm was worse than anything she had anticipated. The snow now fell so thickly that she could barely see 10 feet ahead, and the temperature had dropped until her fingers felt numb even inside her gloves. She knew she should turn back, that no telegram was worth risking her life, but she had already come so far. The $5 would buy the medicine and leave enough left over for a week's worth of groceries. Her family was counting on that money, even if they did not know it yet. Dahlia pushed forward, squinting against the snow. According to Mrs. Patterson's directions, the Whitmore ranch should be just over the next rise. Quinn Whitmore had inherited the property from his uncle 3 years ago and had built it into one of the most successful cattle operations in the territory. He employed a dozen men year-round and shipped beef as far as Kansas City. Dahlia had never met him personally, though she had heard plenty of gossip from the women in town. Some called him a shrewd businessman. Others said he was too much of a loner, keeping to himself and rarely coming to town except for supplies and cattle sales. The wind gusted so hard that Dahlia stumbled, catching herself just before she fell. Her legs ached with exhaustion and cold, and she could no longer feel her toes. She stopped for a moment, breathing hard, trying to get her bearings. The world around her was nothing but white, the snow so thick now that she could barely distinguish earth from sky. Panic flickered in her chest. Had she missed the ranch somehow? Had she wandered off the road? Then, through the swirling snow, she saw it. A warm orange glow that could only be lamplight. Relief flooded through her so intensely that her knees nearly buckled. She stumbled toward the light, which gradually resolved into windows, then walls, then a substantial two-story ranch house with smoke rising from its chimney. Several outbuildings stood nearby, and she could hear the restless sounds of horses and cattle sheltering from the storm. Dahlia half walked, half stumbled up to the front door and knocked, her frozen fingers barely able to make a sound against the wood. She knocked again, harder this time, and heard movement from inside. The door swung open, and warm air rushed out to meet her. The man who stood in the doorway was tall and broad-shouldered, with dark hair slightly too long and sharp green eyes that widened in surprise at the sight of her. He wore a simple work shirt and denim pants, and his face bore the weathered look of a man who spent most of his days outdoors. Dahlia guessed he was perhaps 27 or 28. "Good Lord," he said, his voice deep and rough with shock. "Get inside." Now, Dahlia did not need to be told twice. She stumbled across the threshold, and the man quickly shut the door behind her. The warmth of the house hit her like a physical force, and she swayed on her feet. "Sit down before you fall down," the man commanded, guiding her toward a chair near the stone fireplace that dominated one wall of the main room. "What in God's name are you doing out in this storm?" Dahlia's teeth chattered so hard she could barely speak. She fumbled inside her coat with clumsy fingers, finally extracting the slightly damp envelope. "Telegram for Q. Quinn Whitmore." The man took the envelope, staring at her as though she had sprouted wings. "I'm Quinn Whitmore." "But no telegram is worth dying for. How far did you walk?" "F from Albuquerque." Mrs. P. Patterson said it was urgent. Quinn's expression shifted from shock to something like anger. "Mary Patterson sent you out in this? Alone?" He shook his head, setting the telegram aside without opening it. "First things first. We need to get you warm." He disappeared into another room and returned with a thick wool blanket, which he wrapped around Dahlia's shoulders. Then he knelt by the fireplace and added more wood, stoking the flames until they blazed high. Dahlia huddled in the chair, gradually becoming aware of her surroundings. The house was surprisingly well appointed, with sturdy furniture and curtains on the windows. Books lined shelves along one wall, and a desk in the corner held neat stacks of papers. Quinn went to the kitchen area and returned with a tin cup of something hot. "Coffee," he said, pressing the cup into her hands. "Drink it slowly." Dahlia wrapped her frozen fingers around the cup, savoring its warmth. She took a small sip and felt the hot liquid burn down her throat in the most wonderful way. As sensation slowly returned to her extremities, she became aware of the painful tingling in her fingers and toes. Quinn pulled another chair close to the fire and sat down, studying her with an expression she could not quite read. "What's your name?" "Dahlia Harper." "Well, Miss Harper, I don't know whether you're incredibly brave or incredibly foolish." "I needed the money," Dahlia said simply, her teeth still chattering though less violently now. "My brother is sick. The doctor says he needs medicine." Something shifted in Quinn's expression, the anger fading into something softer. "I see. Still, you could have died out there." The storm came up fast and fierce. "I know." Dahlia took another sip of coffee, feeling warmth spread through her body. "I thought I could make it before it got too bad. I was wrong." Quinn stood and went to the window, looking out at the raging storm. "You won't be going anywhere tonight." "Maybe not tomorrow either, the way this is coming down. I hope your family knows where you are." Dahlia's heart sank. She had not thought about that. Her mother would be worried sick when she did not return home, and her brother still needed that medicine. But Quinn was right. Even if she wanted to leave, which she decidedly did not after nearly freezing to death, the storm had grown into a full blizzard. The wind howled around the house, and snow piled against the windows. "They'll worry," she admitted quietly, "but there's nothing to be done about it now." Quinn turned back to her, and she saw understanding in his eyes. No, there's not, but you're safe here. That's what matters. He picked up the telegram from where he had set it on a side table. I suppose I should see what was so urgent. He broke the seal and unfolded the paper, his eyes scanning the message. Dahlia watched his expression change from curious to grim. He read it twice, then carefully folded it again and set it down. Bad news, Dahlia ventured. Quinn was silent for a long moment, staring into the fire. My mother is dying. My sister says I should come to Kansas if I want to see her one last time. His voice was carefully neutral, but Dahlia heard the pain beneath it. I'm so sorry, she said, and meant it. We haven't spoken in 3 years. Not since I refused to sell this place and move back east to work in her husband's bank. Quinn's jaw tightened. She called me stubborn and ungrateful. I called her controlling. We both said things we shouldn't have. Dahlia understood family complications all too well. But your sister reached out. That means there's still time to make things right. Quinn looked at her, really looked at her, and something passed between them in that moment. A recognition of shared understanding, of the weight of responsibility that fell on eldest children, of difficult choices and their consequences. Maybe, he said finally, if I can get through this storm and to the railroad in time. How long would the journey take? 4 or 5 days by train if the connections are good, longer if I have to wait between trains. Quinn ran a hand through his hair, a gesture that spoke of deep weariness. I'll have to leave the ranch in my foreman's hands. Not the best timing with winter setting in, but some things are more important than cattle. They sat in comfortable silence for a while, listening to the storm rage outside. Dahlia's shivers had finally subsided, though she kept the blanket wrapped tightly around herself. She studied Quinn when she thought he was not looking, noticing the calluses on his hands that spoke of hard work, the lines at the corners of his eyes that suggested he smiled more than he frowned, despite his current serious expression. He had a strong face, handsome in a rugged way, and there was something inherently trustworthy about him. You must be hungry, Quinn said suddenly, standing up. I was just about to make dinner when you knocked. Nothing fancy, just beef stew, but there's plenty. I don't want to be a burden, Dahlia protested, though her stomach growled at the mention of food. You walked 12 miles through a blizzard to bring me news of my dying mother. The least I can do is feed you. Quinn moved to the kitchen area and began pulling out pots and ingredients. Besides, I could use the company. It gets lonely out here, especially in winter. Dahlia watched him work, impressed by his competence. Many men she knew could barely boil water, leaving all cooking to wives or mothers or hired help. But Quinn moved around the kitchen with easy confidence, chopping vegetables and stirring pots as though he had been doing it his whole life. Did your mother teach you to cook? She asked. Quinn laughed, though there was little humor in it. No. My mother believed men should never set foot in a kitchen. I learned after I came out here because the alternative was starving or eating nothing but beans and hardtack. He glanced at her over his shoulder. Turns out I have something of a talent for it, though don't spread that around. Cowboys already think I'm odd enough without knowing their boss bakes his own bread. Dahlia smiled, the first real smile since she had started her journey that morning. Your secret is safe with me. As Quinn cooked, they talked. She told him about her family, about her father's death and the struggle to keep everyone fed and housed. He told her about inheriting the ranch from his uncle, about the hard work of building it into something profitable, about the satisfaction of creating something with his own 2 hands. They talked about Albuquerque and how it was changing, about the railroad and progress, and what it all meant for the territory. By the time the stew was ready, Dahlia felt as though she had known Quinn for much longer than a few hours. There was an easiness between them that surprised her, a natural compatibility that made conversation flow without effort. When they sat down to eat at the small table near the kitchen, she found herself relaxing in a way she had not allowed herself to do in a very long time. The stew was delicious, rich and hearty, and exactly what she needed after her ordeal. Quinn had also produced fresh bread that must have been baked that morning and butter that tasted like heaven. Dahlia ate until she was pleasantly full, savoring every bite. "This is wonderful," she said. "Thank you. You're welcome." Quinn refilled her coffee cup. "I'm just glad you made it here safely. Another hour out in that storm and we'd be having a very different conversation." Dahlia shuddered, remembering the white emptiness, the numbing cold, the moment when she had thought she might have lost her way. "I was so focused on the money that I didn't really think about the danger until I was already too far to turn back." "How old is your brother, the sick one?" "Benjamin just turned 7. He's always been small for his age, and this winter has been hard on him. The cough started 3 weeks ago and just kept getting worse. Dr. Morrison says it's lung fever and without the right medicine." Dahlia trailed off, not wanting to finish that thought. Quinn nodded slowly. "The $5 for the delivery, that's for his medicine. That and food. My mother takes in sewing, but it's not enough to cover everything. And my youngest brother, Samuel, he's only 10, still in school. I don't want him to have to leave and find work, not yet. He's smart. He could make something of himself if he gets the chance to finish his education." "What about you?" Quinn asked quietly. "What do you want?" The question caught Dahlia off guard. Nobody had asked her that in longer than she could remember. Everyone assumed she would keep working, keep taking care of her family, keep sacrificing her own wants for their needs. And she would, because that was what you did for the people you loved. But to have someone actually ask what she wanted for herself felt strange and unsettling and oddly touching. "I don't know," she admitted. "I used to dream of becoming a teacher. I love reading and I was good at school before I had to leave to work. But that seems like someone else's dream now, someone younger with fewer responsibilities." "You're what, 21? 22? That's not old." "22, but I feel older sometimes." Dahlia traced the rim of her coffee cup with one finger. "What about you? Did you always want to be a rancher?" Quinn shook his head. "I wanted to be a lawyer, actually. Went to college back in Pennsylvania, studied law for 2 years. Then my uncle wrote and said he needed help with the ranch, that his health was failing. My mother forbade me to go. She had plans for me to marry a banker's daughter and join his firm, but I came anyway." He smiled, and this time it reached his eyes. "Best decision I ever made, despite everything. This land gets in your blood. The space, the sky, the freedom. I couldn't go back to city life now if you paid me. But you're going to Kansas," Dahlia pointed out, "to say goodbye to my mother, not to stay. No matter what happens there, this ranch is my home now." Quinn's expression grew distant. "I just hope I can make peace with her before it's too late. I hate knowing that the last words between us were angry ones." They finished eating in thoughtful silence, and then Quinn insisted on cleaning up while Dahlia rested by the fire. She protested, but he was firm. "You nearly froze to death today. Rest. That's an order." So Dahlia sat wrapped in her blanket and watched the snow fall outside the window in thick white curtains. The storm showed no signs of letting up. If anything, it seemed to be intensifying. She thought of her mother and brothers, hoped they would not worry too much, hoped Benjamin would hold on until she could get home with the money for his medicine. When the dishes were done, Quinn came and sat across from her again. "I should show you where you'll sleep. The second bedroom upstairs is made up for guests. It's not fancy, but it's warm and the bed is comfortable." "I really don't want to impose," Dahlia began, but Quinn cut her off. "You're not imposing. You're stranded by an act of nature, and Western hospitality demands that I provide shelter." Besides, he added with a slight smile, it's nice to have someone to talk to. Like I said, winters get lonely out here. Dahlia followed him upstairs, where he showed her a small but clean bedroom with a bed covered in quilts and a washstand in the corner. A window looked out over what she assumed was normally a view of the surrounding countryside, though right now there was nothing to see but snow. "There's fresh water in the pitcher," Quinn said, "and extra blankets in the chest if you need them. The house stays pretty warm as long as I keep the downstairs fire going, which I will. If you need anything, I'll be in the room at the end of the hall." "Thank you," Dahlia said, suddenly feeling awkward. She was spending the night in a strange man's house, unchaperoned. In town, that would be scandalous enough to ruin her reputation. But out here, with the storm raging, there was no alternative. "I appreciate your kindness. It's nothing." Quinn hesitated in the doorway as though he wanted to say something more. Finally, he simply nodded. "Sleep well, Miss Harper. Tomorrow we'll see if the storm has passed." After he left, Dahlia washed her face and hands in the cold water from the pitcher, then examined her clothes. Her dress was damp in places from the snow, but not soaked through thanks to her coat. She hung the coat on a hook to dry and climbed into bed fully dressed, not having anything else to wear. The quilts were thick and warm, and the pillow soft beneath her head. Despite her exhaustion, she lay awake for a while, listening to the wind howl and thinking about the strange turn her day had taken. She had left Albuquerque that morning as a desperate young woman trying to earn money for her sick brother's medicine. Now she was lying in the guest room of a handsome rancher who made excellent stew and read books, and was rushing to reconcile with his dying mother. Life, she reflected, was endlessly surprising. Her last thought before sleep claimed her was of Quinn's green eyes, and the way they had softened when she talked about her family. Something had happened between them today, some connection forged in the storm and the firelight and the honest conversation. She did not know what it meant or where it might lead, but for the first time in longer than she could remember, Dahlia felt something other than worry and exhaustion. She felt curious, alive, interested in what tomorrow might bring. When Dahlia woke the next morning, sunlight was streaming through the window with an intensity that made her squint. She sat up, disoriented for a moment, then remembered where she was. The storm must have passed in the night. She got up and looked out the window, gasping at what she saw. The world had been transformed into a winter wonderland. Snow covered everything in a thick white blanket, pristine and beautiful in the morning sun. The sky was clear and brilliantly blue, without a single cloud. It was gorgeous, and also deeply concerning. The snow looked at least 2 feet deep, maybe more in the drifts. There was no way she could walk back to Albuquerque through that, not without snowshoes or skis, neither of which she possessed. She heard movement downstairs, and the smell of something cooking drifted up. Her stomach growled, reminding her that she had not eaten since last night's dinner. She finger-combed her hair as best she could and went downstairs, finding Quinn at the stove making flapjacks. "Good morning," he said, turning to smile at her. In the daylight streaming through the windows, she noticed things about him she had missed last night. The way his hair curled slightly at the nape of his neck, the small scar on his left hand, the ease of his movements, the quiet confidence he carried. "Good morning," she replied. It stopped snowing. About 3 hours before dawn, from what I can tell. We got at least 2 feet, maybe more. "Coffee, please." Dahlia accepted the cup he poured for her and sat at the table. "I can't walk back to town in that, can I?" Quinn shook his head. "Not safely, no. The drifts in some places will be up to your waist. Even on horseback, it'll be slow going." He flipped the flapjacks expertly. "But I need to get to town anyway to catch the train to Kansas. We can ride together. I've got a gentle mare that'll carry you just fine." "I've never ridden a horse before," Dahlia admitted. Quinn looked at her in surprise. "Never. My family doesn't have horses. We've always walked or taken the wagon when we could afford to hire one." She felt embarrassed by this admission, though she knew it was nothing to be ashamed of. Many working-class families in town did not own horses. "Well, today you'll learn," Quinn said matter-of-factly. "Don't worry. Daisy is the gentlest horse I've got. If you can stay in the saddle, she'll do the rest." They ate breakfast together, falling into easy conversation as though they had been sharing morning meals for years, rather than having just met. Quinn talked about his plans for the trip to Kansas, and Dahlia found herself offering advice on which train connections to take and which stations had the best food. "You know a lot about the railroad," Quinn observed. "I pay attention when people talk," Dahlia said with a shrug. "And I deliver telegrams, remember. You'd be amazed what you can learn just by listening." After breakfast, Quinn went out to prepare the horses while Dahlia cleaned up the kitchen. She found herself humming as she worked, feeling lighter than she had in months, despite being stranded miles from home. There was something about Quinn's presence that made her feel safe and comfortable, as though she had known him far longer than a single evening and morning. When she went outside, bundled in her coat and scarf, the cold hit her like a slap. But the sun was bright and the air crisp and clean, and there was a beauty to the winter landscape that took her breath away. Quinn stood by the barn with 2 horses saddled and ready, a tall black gelding and a smaller chestnut mare with a white blaze on her face. "This is Daisy," Quinn said, stroking the mare's neck. "She's about 12 years old and has carried children and elderly folks alike. She won't give you any trouble." Dahlia approached cautiously, reaching out to touch Daisy's soft nose. The mare whuffed gently and regarded her with calm brown eyes. "She's beautiful. She's patient, which is more important for your purposes." Quinn showed Dahlia how to hold the reins and where to put her feet in the stirrups. Then, with his hands on her waist, he lifted her into the saddle as though she weighed nothing at all. Dahlia grabbed the saddle horn, suddenly very aware of how far off the ground she was. The horse shifted beneath her and she tensed. "Relax," Quinn said, his voice soothing. "She can feel your fear. Take a deep breath and sit easy. There you go." He adjusted the stirrups to fit her shorter legs. "Keep your heels down and your back straight. Don't pull on the reins unless you want her to stop. She'll follow my horse, so you don't have to do much steering." Quinn mounted his own horse with the fluid grace of someone who had been riding since childhood. He was an impressive figure on horseback, sitting tall and confident. He clicked his tongue and his gelding started forward at a walk, and true to his word, Daisy followed without Dahlia having to do anything. The journey to town was slow and careful, the horses picking their way through the deep snow. Despite her initial nervousness, Dahlia found herself relaxing and even enjoying the experience. There was something magical about moving through the silent white landscape on horseback, the rhythm of Daisy's gait, almost meditative. Quinn rode beside her when the path allowed it, and they talked to pass the time. He told her stories about the ranch, about ornery cattle and coyotes, and the time one of his hands got treed by a wild hog. She told him about life in Albuquerque, about the characters who came through the telegraph office, about her youngest brother's dream of becoming an engineer on the railroad. "Your family is lucky to have you," Quinn said at one point. "Not everyone would sacrifice their own dreams so readily." Dahlia shrugged, uncomfortable with the praise. "It's not sacrifice, it's just what you do for people you love. Still, not everyone does it." Quinn was quiet for a moment, then added, "My mother never understood that. She thought love meant controlling people, making them into what you wanted them to be. It's taken me a long time to realize that her inability to let me live my own life wasn't my failure. It was hers. Maybe she'll understand that now, Dahlia suggested gently. People sometimes see things more clearly when they're facing the end. Maybe. I hope so. I'd like to believe we can part on good terms. They reached the outskirts of Albuquerque around midday. The town looked different under its blanket of snow, cleaner and softer somehow. People were out shoveling walkways and digging out doorways, and children were engaged in snowball fights in the streets. A few people stopped to stare as Dahlia rode by on horseback with Quinn beside her, and she could practically hear the gossip starting. Quinn pulled up in front of the telegraph office. "This is where you work, right?" "Yes." Dahlia accepted his help in dismounting, grateful when her slightly stiff legs held her weight. "Thank you for everything. For the shelter, the food, the ride home. I don't know how to repay you." "You don't need to repay me." Quinn looked down at her from his horse, and something in his expression made her heart skip. "You brought me news I needed to hear, even if it wasn't what I wanted to hear. That's worth more than a night's shelter and a few meals." Mrs. Patterson emerged from the telegraph office, her face a mixture of relief and guilt. "Dahlia, thank God you're all right. I've been worried sick since the storm hit. I never should have sent you out so late in the day." "I'm fine, Mrs. Patterson," Dahlia assured her. "Mr. Whitmore gave me shelter during the storm." Mrs. Patterson looked between them, her sharp eyes missing nothing. "Well, that was very kind of him. I'll have your payment inside." "Actually," Quinn said, pulling something from his pocket, "I'd like to pay Miss Harper directly if you don't mind." He handed Dahlia not $5 but $20. "For the telegram delivery and for the best conversation I've had in a year." Dahlia stared at the money in her hand, stunned. "I can't take this. It's too much." "Yes, you can. You nearly died bringing me that message, and your brother needs medicine." Quinn's expression was firm, brooking no argument. "Take it, please." Tears pricked at Dahlia's eyes. With this money, she could buy Benjamin's medicine and have enough left over to keep the family fed for a month or more. "Thank you," she whispered. "You have no idea what this means." "I have some idea." Quinn gathered his reins, preparing to ride on to the railroad station. "Take care of your family, Dahlia Harper, and take care of yourself too." He was about to ride away when Dahlia found herself calling out, "Will you come back? After Kansas, I mean. Will you come back to Albuquerque?" Quinn smiled, and it transformed his whole face. "I live here." "Of course I'll come back. The ranch isn't going to run itself." "I meant to town. Will you come to town?" "I come in for supplies every few weeks." Quinn's smile widened. "Why will you be looking for me?" Dahlia felt her cheeks heat, but she held his gaze. "Maybe I will." "Then I'll be sure to stop by the telegraph office when I do." With a tip of his hat, Quinn rode off down the snowy street, and Dahlia watched him go until he turned a corner and disappeared from sight. Mrs. Patterson cleared her throat delicately. "Well, that was quite something." Dahlia turned to find her employer regarding her with a knowing expression. "It was just a storm. He was just being kind. Hum." Mrs. Patterson's tone made it clear she did not believe that for a second. A man doesn't give a woman $20 for a $5 job out of simple kindness. "He's interested in you, dear. He's leaving for Kansas today. His mother is dying. But he's coming back, and he asked if you'd be looking for him." Mrs. Patterson patted Dahlia's arm. "I've been married 30 years. I know how these things start. Come inside and warm up. You can tell me all about it while you thaw out." Dahlia did just that, though she left out some of the more personal parts of her conversation with Quinn. As she sat by the pot-bellied stove in the telegraph office, drinking hot tea and feeling the last of the cold seep from her bones, she realized that something fundamental had shifted inside her. For the first time since her father's death, She felt hopeful about something other than just surviving. She felt curious about what might happen next, about what it might mean that Quinn Whitmore had looked at her the way he had, spoken to her the way he had, given her 4 times what she had earned. After warming up, Dahlia went straight to the doctor's office and bought the medicine for Benjamin. Dr. Morrison gave it to her along with detailed instructions on how to administer it. Then she hurried home, eager to see her family. Her mother burst into tears when Dahlia walked through the door. "Thank God! I thought you were dead when you didn't come home last night. Then the storm hit and I was sure I'd lost you." "I'm fine, Mama. I got caught in the storm and had to shelter at the ranch where I was delivering the telegram. But look." Dahlia showed her the medicine. "I got it, and enough money for food, too." Her mother hugged her tightly, and over her shoulder, Dahlia could see Benjamin lying on the narrow bed in the corner, his face flushed with fever. Samuel sat beside him, reading aloud from a worn book, her heart clenched with love and worry for them both. She went to Benjamin and felt his forehead, which was burning hot. "I've got your medicine, sweet boy. We're going to make you better." Over the next few days, Dahlia focused all her attention on nursing her brother back to health. She administered the medicine faithfully every 4 hours, coaxed him to drink water and broth, and sat with him through fevered nights when he thrashed and called out in delirium. Slowly, gradually, the medicine began to work. His fever broke, and color returned to his pale cheeks. By the end of the week, he was sitting up and asking for real food. During those long days and nights of nursing, Dahlia thought often of Quinn. She wondered if he had made it to Kansas in time, if he had reconciled with his mother, how long he would be gone. She imagined conversations they might have when he returned, things she might say, questions she might ask. She caught herself thinking about the way he had looked at her, the tone of his voice when he spoke her name, the strength of his hands when he lifted her onto the horse. Mrs. Patterson noticed Dahlia's distraction and teased her gently about it. "Mooning over that handsome rancher, are you?" "I'm not mooning," Dahlia protested, but she could not help smiling. "I'm just curious about how his trip went." "Curious? Is that what we're calling it now, Mrs.?" Patterson chuckled. "He's a good man, from what I hear. Treats his workers well, pays fair wages, doesn't cheat on his contracts. You could do a lot worse." "I barely know him. We spent one evening and one morning together. Sometimes that's enough. When my Henry proposed, we'd known each other all of 3 weeks." Mrs. Patterson sorted through a stack of telegrams. "What matters isn't how long you've known someone. It's whether you see something in them worth knowing better." Dahlia thought about that as she went about her work. Did she see something in Quinn Whitmore worth knowing better? The answer, she realized, was yes. Definitely yes. He was intelligent and kind, practical and thoughtful. He made her laugh and made her think. In his presence, she felt like more than just a struggling young woman trying to keep her family afloat. She felt seen, valued, interesting. But more than a week passed with no word from him, and Dahlia began to wonder if she had imagined the connection between them. Maybe he had been simply kind to a young woman in distress. Maybe the money had been charity, nothing more. Maybe he would not come back to town, or if he did, would not remember his promise to stop by the telegraph office. Then, on a cold, clear morning 2 weeks after the snowstorm, the bell above the telegraph office door jingled and Quinn walked in. Dahlia looked up from the telegram she was transcribing, and her heart did something complicated in her chest. He looked tired, with shadows under his eyes and a weariness in his posture, but he smiled when he saw her. "Hello, Dahlia Harper." "Hello, Quinn Whitmore." Dahlia set down her pencil, suddenly very aware of Mrs. Patterson watching with undisguised interest from her desk. "You're back." "I promised I would be." Quinn glanced at Mrs. Patterson and nodded politely. "Madam." Mr. Whitmore, Mrs. Patterson said with a knowing smile. How nice to see you again. I believe I need to check on something in the back room. Dahlia, can you manage the front on your own for a bit? Yes, Mrs. Patterson, Dahlia said, trying not to laugh at the transparent excuse. Once they were alone, Quinn stepped closer to the counter. How is your brother? Much better. The medicine worked. He's back to his usual self, driving Mama and Samuel crazy with his energy. Dahlia smiled, though it faded as she took in Quinn's appearance. How was Kansas? Your mother, Quinn's expression turned somber. I made it in time, just barely, but I made it. We had 2 days together before she passed. We talked, really talked, for the first time in years. She apologized for trying to control my life. I apologized for the harsh things I said. We made our peace. He paused, his voice thick. She died holding my hand. It was as good an ending as we could have hoped for, given everything. I'm so sorry for your loss, Dahlia said softly. But I'm glad you had those 2 days, that you got to reconcile. Me too. It was hard, but it was right. Quinn reached into his coat and pulled out an envelope. I've been thinking about you the whole trip. Wondering how you were, how your brother was, whether you'd still be interested in seeing me again. Dahlia's pulse quickened. I've been thinking about you too. I'm not good at this, Quinn admitted, turning the envelope over in his hands. I'm better with cattle and accounts than I am with words, but I spent the long train rides thinking about what I wanted to say to you, so I wrote it down. He held out the envelope. This is for you. Dahlia took it, surprised by the weight of it. What is it? Read it and find out. Quinn's expression was unreadable, but his eyes held an intensity that made her breath catch. I'll come back tomorrow for your answer. Before she could respond, he was gone, the bell jingling as the door closed behind him. Dahlia stared at the envelope in her hands, her name written on it in a strong, masculine hand. Her hands trembled slightly as she broke the seal and pulled out several pages of closely written text. Mrs. Patterson emerged from the back room with suspicious speed. Well, what did he want? He gave me a letter. Dahlia unfolded the pages, her eyes scanning the first lines. A letter? How romantic. What does it say? I don't know yet. I haven't read it. Well, read it. Don't keep an old woman in suspense. Dahlia took a deep breath and began to read. Dear Dahlia, I have never been good with spoken words, especially when those words matter. So I am writing this on a train heading east toward Kansas, hoping that paper and ink will help me express what I find difficult to say face to face. You walked into my life during a snowstorm, half frozen and determined, and somehow in the space of one evening and one morning, you changed everything. I know that sounds dramatic, perhaps even foolish, given how briefly we have known each other. But I am not a man given to drama or foolishness. I am practical, perhaps too much so. And yet I cannot deny what I feel. In the 2 days I spent with my mother before she died, she asked me about my life. I told her about the ranch, about my work, about the satisfaction of building something with my own hands. And then she asked me if I was happy. I realized that I could not answer her truthfully because I did not know. I have been content, yes, satisfied with my work, certainly, but happy. I was not sure I understood what that meant anymore. Then I thought about the evening I spent talking with you by the fireplace, and I realized that was happiness. The ease of our conversation, the way you understood without judgment, the laughter we shared, the way your eyes lit up when you talked about your family. That was happiness. And I want more of it. I know this is sudden. I know you have responsibilities and I have responsibilities. I know we come from different circumstances and have known each other for hardly any time at all. But my mother's death has reminded me that life is short and uncertain, and that we do not always get a second chance to say what needs to be said or do what needs to be done. So I am saying it now, writing it because I am a coward when it comes to matters of the heart. Dahlia Harper, I would like to know you better. I would like to court you properly, if you will have me. I would like to see where this feeling between us might lead. But more than that, and this is the part that makes me a fool or a romantic or perhaps both, I already know where I hope it will lead. I want a partner in life, someone to share the work and the joy, someone to talk to by the fireplace on long winter evenings. I want someone who understands that love is both practical and profound, that it is built on respect and conversation as much as passion and attraction. I want you. If you feel even a fraction of what I feel, if you see even the possibility of something between us, then I am asking you this. Marry me. Not tomorrow, not next week, but eventually, when you have had time to think, to be sure, to know your own heart. Come to the ranch, stay for a while. Learn about my life and let me learn about yours. See if what began in a snowstorm can grow into something lasting. I am not a rich man, but I am comfortable. I can provide for you and help support your family if needed. Your brothers could have worked at the ranch if they wanted it. Your mother would be welcome to live with us. I would never ask you to abandon those you love, but mostly I am offering myself. My heart, my home, my future. All of it if you want it. This is madness, I know. We are strangers who happen to share a moment of connection. You have every right to laugh at this letter, to think me presumptuous or insane. But I have learned that some moments are worth acting on, some feelings are worth risking foolishness for. I will return to Albuquerque after my mother's funeral. I will come to the telegraph office. And I will hope with everything in me that your answer is yes. Yours if you will have me, Quinn. Whitmore Dahlia read the letter twice, then a third time, her heart pounding so hard she thought it might burst from her chest. Mrs. Patterson was practically vibrating with curiosity. Well, what does it say? Dahlia looked up, tears streaming down her face though she was smiling. He proposed. He asked me to marry him. Mrs. Patterson let out a whoop that probably echoed through half the town. I knew it. I knew from the way he looked at you. What did you say? What are you going to say? I don't know, Dahlia admitted, though that was not quite true. She knew exactly what she wanted to say. She had known from the moment she read the words "I want you," but it felt too fast, too impulsive, too much like a fairy tale to be real. We barely know each other. So get to know each other. He's not asking you to marry him tomorrow. He's asking you to see if what you have is real. Mrs. Patterson came around her desk and took Dahlia's hands. Listen to me, dear. I've seen a lot of people come through this office, sent a lot of telegrams about a lot of things. And I can tell you that what you and that man have is rare. Most people go their whole lives without finding someone who sees them the way he sees you. Don't let fear or propriety or good sense talk you out of something that could be wonderful. Dahlia wiped her eyes. What about my family? I can't just leave them. He said they could come, didn't he? That your brothers could work at the ranch and your mother could live with you. He's not asking you to choose. He's offering to take on your whole family. Mrs. Patterson squeezed her hands. That's not just a proposal, dear. That's love. That night, Dahlia lay in bed listening to her brothers sleep and thinking about Quinn's letter. She had read it so many times she practically had it memorized. The words resonated in her heart, echoing her own feelings so perfectly that it frightened her a little. How was it possible to feel so strongly about someone she had known for such a short time? But then she thought about the conversations they had shared, the way he had cared for her when she was cold and exhausted, the respect in his voice when he spoke to her, the understanding in his eyes. She thought about his honesty, his willingness to be vulnerable, his courage in writing what he felt even knowing she might reject him. And she thought about what her life might look like with him versus what it looked like now. Not that her current life was bad, exactly. She loved her family and would do anything for them. But she was tired, so tired of struggling and scraping by, of worrying constantly about money and food and medicine. Quinn was offering her a chance at something different, something more. Not just security, though that mattered too, but partnership, companionship, love, or at least the possibility of it. By the time dawn broke, Dahlia had made her decision. She got up and dressed carefully, putting on her best dress and pinning up her hair. She helped her mother make breakfast and then walked to the general store, where she bought paper and ink. Back at home, she sat at the small kitchen table and composed her response, choosing her words as carefully as Quinn had chosen his. "Dear Quinn, your letter surprised me, moved me, and gave me hope for a future I had stopped allowing myself to imagine. You are right that this is sudden and perhaps mad, but you are also right that some moments are worth acting on. I felt the connection between us too. In the warmth of your home, in the easy flow of our conversation, in the way you saw me as more than just a girl desperate for money to save her brother. You saw me as a person with thoughts and dreams and worth. That alone would make you remarkable, but there is more. Your kindness, your strength, your honesty, your willingness to be vulnerable even when it might cost you. I do not know if what I feel is love yet, but I know it is the beginning of something that could become love, given time and attention and care. And I want to find out. I want to know you better. I want to learn about ranching and cattle and the land you love so much. I want more conversations by the fireplace. I want to see where this might lead, so my answer is yes. Yes, I will come to the ranch. Yes, I will see if what we have can grow into something lasting. Yes, I will marry you when the time is right and we are both sure. My family comes first always. But you understand that. You offered to include them in our life together, and that generosity means more than I can express. My brothers will be thrilled at the prospect of ranch work, and my mother needs a place where she does not have to worry constantly about how to feed us all. But beyond all the practical considerations, beyond security and family and sensible decisions, there is this: when I think about you, I smile. When I remember our conversations, I feel less alone. When I imagine a future with you, I feel something I have not felt in a very long time. Hope. Come to the telegraph office when you return. I will be waiting. Yours, Dahlia Harper." She sealed the letter and walked to the telegraph office, where Mrs. Patterson took one look at her face and grinned. "You're saying yes." "I'm saying yes, but I need to give him this." Dahlia held up the sealed envelope. "He said he would come back today." "Then we wait," Mrs. Patterson said simply. They did not have to wait long. Around mid-morning, Quinn appeared in the doorway. He looked nervous, Dahlia realized. This confident, capable man who ran a successful ranch and had traveled halfway across the country was nervous about what she might say. She stood up from her desk, her letter in her hand. They looked at each other across the small office, and the world seemed to narrow down to just the two of them. "I wrote back," Dahlia said quietly. Quinn's expression was unreadable. And, instead of answering, she walked across the office and handed him the letter. "Read it and find out." She saw the moment he recognized his own words being used back at him, and he smiled. He broke the seal and read quickly, his eyes moving across the page. When he looked up, his expression had transformed into pure joy. "Yes, you're saying yes." "I'm saying yes," Dahlia confirmed. "Yes to knowing you better. Yes to seeing where this leads. Yes to eventually when we're both ready." Quinn closed the distance between them in 2 strides and took her hands in his. "I promise you won't regret this. I promise I'll do everything I can to make you happy, to be worthy of this chance you're giving me." "I promise the same," Dahlia said. She was vaguely aware of Mrs. Patterson sniffling happily in the background, but most of her attention was focused on Quinn. On the way he held her hands as though they were precious, on the light in his eyes, on the smile that transformed his whole face. "When can you come to the ranch?" Quinn asked. "I know you have work and family obligations, but I want to show you everything. I want you to see your future home and meet my men and learn about the life we could build together." "Give me a week," Dahlia said. "I need to talk to my family, make arrangements with Mrs. Patterson for someone to cover my shifts, and Benjamin is still recovering. I want to make sure he's fully well before I leave." "A week. I can wait a week." Quinn looked like he wanted to say more, to do more, but they were in public and propriety mattered, even in frontier New Mexico. "I'll come back for you. I'll bring the wagon so your family can visit too, see the ranch, get comfortable with the idea." "They'll love it," Dahlia assured him. "My brothers will be beside themselves at the prospect of ranch work." True to his word, Quinn returned a week later with a wagon and 2 riding horses. Dahlia's whole family piled into the wagon for the journey to the ranch, with Dahlia riding Daisy alongside them. Benjamin and Samuel peppered Quinn with questions about cattle and horses and ranch life, and he answered with patience and good humor. Her mother was quieter, but Dahlia could see her studying Quinn, assessing him as only a mother could. When they reached the ranch, and her mother saw the substantial house, the well-maintained outbuildings, and the obvious prosperity of the operation, some of the tension left her shoulders. Quinn gave them a tour, showing them the barn full of horses, the winter pastures where the cattle grazed, the bunkhouse where his ranch hands lived. He introduced them to his foreman, a grizzled man named Jack who had worked for Quinn's uncle before him. "Your daughter will be in good hands," Jack told Dahlia's mother. "Boss is the fairest man I ever worked for. He'll treat her right." That night, Quinn made dinner for all of them, demonstrating the cooking skills he had mentioned. Over beef stew and fresh bread, her family relaxed even more. Benjamin and Samuel were already making plans for all the things they would do when they moved to the ranch. Her mother talked with Quinn about practical matters like schooling for the boys and church on Sundays. After dinner, Quinn asked Dahlia to walk with him. They bundled up against the cold and went outside, where stars blazed in the clear winter sky. "What do you think?" Quinn asked. "Can you see yourself here?" Dahlia looked around at the snow-covered land, stretching in every direction, at the solid house with smoke curling from its chimney, at the mountains dark against the starlit sky. She thought about the warmth inside the house, the laughter around the dinner table, the way her brother's eyes had lit up when they saw the horses. "Yes," she said simply, "I can see it." Quinn took her hand, his thumb brushing across her knuckles. "I'm going to do everything I can to make you happy. I know this is fast and probably crazy, but it feels right. You feel right." "You feel right to me too," Dahlia admitted. She turned to face him fully. "I was so focused on just surviving, on taking care of my family, that I forgot to think about what I might want for myself. But being with you, I remember. I remember that I want more than just to survive. I want to live. I want to be happy. I want to build something with someone who sees me." "I see you," Quinn said softly. "I see your strength and your courage and your heart. I see how you love your family, how hard you work, how you keep going even when things are difficult. And I see the woman you could become if you weren't so weighed down by worry and responsibility. I want to help you become that woman. I want to share the load so you don't have to carry it alone anymore." Tears pricked at Dahlia's eyes. "How are you real? How is this real?" I ask myself the same thing. "A snowstorm brought you to my door, and somehow you walked into my life and changed everything." Quinn cupped her face in his hand, his touch gentle. "I know we're doing this backwards. Usually people court for months or years before talking about marriage. But I'm 30 years old and I know my own mind. I know what I want and I want you. If you need more time, I'll wait. If you need me to court you properly first, I'll do that. But know that my mind is made up. Whenever you're ready, I'll be here." "I don't need years," Dahlia said. "I don't even need months. I need enough time to be sure, but not because I doubt you, because I want to honor what we're building. I want to do this right." "Then we'll do it right," Quinn agreed. "However long it takes," but it did not take long at all. Over the next weeks, Dahlia spent every spare moment at the ranch. Sometimes her whole family came, sometimes just her. She learned about cattle and horses, about the rhythm of ranch life, about the business side of running a successful operation. Quinn taught her to ride properly, and they spent hours on horseback exploring the land that would be her home. More importantly, they talked. About everything and nothing, about their pasts and their dreams, about politics and philosophy, and what they wanted from life. Every conversation confirmed what Dahlia already knew in her heart. This was right. Quinn was right. This feeling between them was real and strong and worth building on. Her family adjusted to the idea with surprising ease. Her mother seemed relieved more than anything, grateful that Dahlia would have security and help with the burden of supporting the family. Benjamin and Samuel were simply excited about living on a ranch and learning to be cowboys. They had already started calling Quinn by his first name and following him around whenever they visited. 2 months after Quinn's proposal, on a bright February morning, they were married in a simple ceremony at the small church in Albuquerque. Dahlia wore a new dress that Quinn had insisted on buying for her, simple but lovely in cream-colored wool. Her mother cried happy tears, and her brothers stood up as witnesses. Mrs. Patterson attended with her husband, beaming with satisfaction at having predicted this outcome. Quinn looked handsome in his best suit, and when he spoke his vows, his voice was steady and sure. "I promise to love you, to respect you, to be your partner in all things. I promise to help carry your burdens and share your joys. I promise to build a life with you that honors both of us." Dahlia's voice shook slightly with emotion as she made her own vows. "I promise to love you, to stand beside you, to build something beautiful with you. I promise to bring my whole self to this marriage, my strengths and my weaknesses. I promise to choose you every day for the rest of my life." When the preacher pronounced them husband and wife and Quinn kissed her for the first time, Dahlia felt as though her life was finally beginning. Not that her life before had been meaningless, but this felt like the start of something new and wonderful and full of possibility. They had a small celebration at the hotel restaurant, with her family and the ranch hands and a few friends from town. Then Quinn drove his new wife home to the ranch in the wagon, with her few possessions packed in the back. Her family would move to the ranch in a few weeks, once Quinn finished adding rooms to the house to accommodate everyone. That first night as a married couple, they sat by the fireplace in the house that was now Dahlia's home, drinking coffee and talking just as they had on that first snowy night. But this time, when the fire burned low and it was time for bed, they went upstairs together to the room that Quinn had prepared for them, with fresh linens and wildflowers on the dresser despite it being winter. Quinn paused in the doorway, suddenly looking uncertain. "We can take this as slowly as you need. There's no rush for anything." Dahlia smiled and took his hand. "I'm your wife now. I don't want to take it slowly." And they did not. Their coming together was tender and passionate, awkward in places as first times often are, but filled with genuine affection and growing love. Afterward, lying in Quinn's arms with her head on his chest, Dahlia felt a contentment she had never known before. This was where she belonged. This was home. The weeks and months that followed were a period of adjustment and growth for everyone. Dahlia's family moved to the ranch, with Benjamin and Samuel sharing a room and her mother having her own space. The boys threw themselves into ranch work with enthusiasm, learning to ride and rope and handle cattle under Jack's patient instruction. Her mother took over much of the cooking and helped Dahlia with the house, seeming to blossom with the security of knowing her family was provided for. Dahlia learned the rhythms of ranch life, the endless work required to keep everything running smoothly. She learned to manage a household on a larger scale than she ever had before, to cook for a dozen hungry ranch hands during busy seasons, to keep accounts and order supplies. But she also found time for herself, for the reading she loved, for learning new things, for simply enjoying her new life. Most importantly, she and Quinn grew closer every day. The connection they had felt from the beginning only deepened as they learned each other's habits and quirks, as they navigated the challenges of marriage and blending their lives. They laughed together over breakfast, worked side by side during the day, and talked by the fireplace at night. They learned each other's bodies and hearts, discovering new layers of intimacy and affection. Spring came to New Mexico in a riot of wildflowers and new growth. The cattle fattened on spring grass, and the ranch hands prepared for the long drive to get the beef to market. Dahlia discovered she was pregnant, and the joy on Quinn's face when she told him was something she would treasure forever. "A baby," he said, his hand resting gently on her still flat stomach. "Our baby." "Are you happy?" Dahlia asked, though she could see the answer in his eyes. "Happy doesn't begin to cover it. Blessed, grateful, terrified," Quinn laughed. "How are you feeling?" "Nervous, excited, like everything is happening so fast but also exactly as it should." Their son was born in late autumn after a long labor that left Dahlia exhausted but exhilarated. Quinn stayed by her side the entire time, holding her hand and whispering encouragement. When the midwife finally placed the baby in Dahlia's arms, she looked down at the tiny red face and felt her heart expand in ways she had not known were possible. "He's perfect," she whispered. "He is," Quinn agreed, his voice thick with emotion. "What should we name him?" They had discussed names for months but never settled on anything. Now, looking at her son, Dahlia knew exactly what his name should be. "Thomas, after my father," Quinn nodded. "Thomas Whitmore, I like it." He touched the baby's tiny hand, and the infant's fingers curled reflexively around his father's. "Welcome to the world, Thomas. We've been waiting for you." The years that followed were full and busy and happy. Thomas grew from a tiny infant into a curious toddler and then an energetic little boy. Dahlia and Quinn had two more children, a daughter they named Rose and another son they called Michael. The house rang with children's laughter and the organized chaos of a large, loving family. Benjamin and Samuel grew into capable young men, both of them excellent ranch hands. Benjamin eventually married a girl from town and built a house on ranch land, staying on to help run the operation. Samuel decided he wanted to pursue his dream of working for the railroad and left with his family's blessing, though he visited often. Dahlia's mother lived to see all her grandchildren, peacefully passing in her sleep at the age of 72. It was a loss that grieved them all, but they took comfort in knowing she had spent her final years in comfort and security, surrounded by family. The ranch prospered under Quinn and Benjamin's joint management, growing to include more land and more cattle. Quinn's reputation as a fair and honest businessman spread, and he became a respected figure in the territory. When New Mexico became a state in 1912, he was invited to the celebration in Santa Fe, and he took Dahlia with him. Standing in the crowd as the new state flag was raised, Quinn squeezed her hand. "We helped build this," he said quietly. "This state, this life, this future. We're part of something bigger than ourselves." Dahlia leaned against her husband's shoulder, watching their flag rise against the blue sky. They had been married 27 years, and she loved him more now than she had on that snowy February day when they spoke their vows. Time had added gray to his hair and lines to his face, but it had also deepened their connection, strengthening the bond between them until it felt unbreakable. "We built something good," she agreed. "Something that will last." And it did last. Their children grew up and had children of their own. Thomas took over the ranch when Quinn was ready to step back, running it with the same integrity his father had shown. Rose became a teacher, fulfilling the dream Dahlia had once had for herself. Michael followed his Uncle Samuel to the railroad and became an engineer, proud and skilled at his trade. Quinn and Dahlia grew old together, their love weathering time and hardship, loss and joy, all the countless moments that make up a life. On their 50th wedding anniversary, their children and grandchildren gathered at the ranch for a celebration. Looking around at all the people who had come from their union, at the life they had built together, Dahlia felt overwhelmed with gratitude. That evening, after everyone had gone to bed, she and Quinn sat by the fireplace just as they had done countless times over the decades. Quinn's hair was white now, and his hands showed the marks of a lifetime of hard work, but his eyes were still the same green that had captivated her on that snowy night so long ago. "You ever think about that night?" Dahlia asked. "When I knocked on your door half frozen," Quinn smiled. "All the time. Best snowstorm of my life." "Mine too." Dahlia took his hand, their fingers intertwining with the ease of long practice. "I was so scared that night. Scared I would freeze, scared I would not get the money for Benjamin's medicine, scared of what would happen to my family. And then you opened the door and everything changed." "We changed each other," Quinn said. "You taught me what it means to truly love someone, to build a life with someone. Before you, I was just existing. After you, I was living. The same is true for me. You gave me hope when I had forgotten what it felt like. You gave me a future when I could not see past the next day." Dahlia leaned her head on his shoulder. 50 years. Can you believe it?" "Best 50 years of my life," Quinn said, kissing the top of her head. "And I'd do it all again in a heartbeat." They sat in comfortable silence, watching the fire, thinking their own thoughts. Dahlia reflected on the strange and wonderful path her life had taken. One walk through a snowstorm had led to everything she held dear. One telegram delivery had changed her entire future. One man's heartfelt letter had given her the courage to reach for happiness instead of just survival. She thought about all the moments that had brought them here. The early morning conversations over coffee. The hard work of building a life and a family. The laughter and tears, the triumphs and setbacks. The ordinary days that added up to an extraordinary life. Most of all, she thought about love. Not the sweeping romantic love of storybooks, though there had been plenty of romance in their relationship, but the deeper love that came from truly knowing another person, from choosing them every day, from building something together that was greater than either of them alone. "Thank you," Dahlia said softly. Quinn looked at her, his expression tender. "For what? For seeing me, for choosing me, for building this life with me, for 50 years of love and partnership and joy." Dahlia smiled through the tears gathering in her eyes. "For being exactly who you are." "The same to you," Quinn said, his voice rough with emotion. "Every day with you has been a gift. Every moment has been worth treasuring. You are the best thing that ever happened to me, Dahlia Whitmore." They kissed then, a gentle kiss full of decades of love and affection. And as they sat together by the fire in the house they had made a home, surrounded by the evidence of a life well lived, both of them knew they had found something rare and precious. They had found each other in a snowstorm, two people who needed exactly what the other could offer. They had built a love that had withstood time and hardship. They had created a family and a legacy that would continue long after they were gone. And they had lived, truly lived, every single day of their 50 years together. As the fire burned low and the house settled into peaceful silence around them, Quinn and Dahlia Whitmore held hands and counted themselves blessed. The walk through snow had led to a love that warmed them for a lifetime. The telegram had delivered more than just a message about a dying mother. It had delivered a future neither of them could have imagined, but both of them had embraced with open hearts. And that, in the end, was the greatest gift of all. Not the ranch or the prosperity or the family, though all of those things mattered. But the gift of finding someone who saw you truly, who chose you freely, who loved you completely. That was what the snowstorm had brought them. That was what the telegram had delivered. That was what 50 years of marriage had proven true: love. Real, lasting, transformative love. The kind that began with a knock on a door and a message delivered through snow, and grew into something that would echo through generations. The kind that proved, beyond any doubt, that some things are worth walking through storms for. Some connections are worth acting on, no matter how sudden or surprising. Some loves are worth choosing, over and over again, for as long as life allows. Quinn and Dahlia had chosen each other, and in doing so, they had chosen a life of meaning and purpose and joy. They had built something beautiful together, something that would last long after they were gone. And as they sat together by the fire on their 50th anniversary, they knew without a doubt that they would do it all again exactly the same way. The snowstorm had been just the beginning. The telegram just the catalyst. But the love they built together, day by day and year by year, that was the real story. That was the thing worth celebrating. That was the legacy they would leave behind. A testament to the power of seeing someone truly, choosing them bravely, and loving them completely for a lifetime.